Hello, everybody. Of course, this is New Year's Eve, or the morning for New Year's Eve, and that means there's going to be a lot of revelry taking place later tonight. And joining me today is Scottsbluff County Sheriff Mark Overman. We're going to talk a little bit about the enforcement efforts to make sure roads are safe tonight and every night, of course.
Okay, good morning, Scott.
But there's going to be some extra enforcement that's going to be taking place as the evening progresses, correct?
There is. It's a New Year's tradition for us. And for all of law enforcement, we get some grant funding from the Nebraska Office of Highway Safety, and they get funding from the feds, and so we get grants at certain times of the year, and pretty much all of the law enforcement agencies get those grants. So so you'll see some extra enforcement out from all of the law enforcement agencies.
And of course, this is grants that help pay for overtime, and the officers sign up for these extra shifts, if you will, to provide this coverage to make sure that our roads are safe and that we don't have a lot of drunk drivers out there.
That's right. It's all about keeping people safe.
Now, what type of enforcement efforts do we generally have? Checkpoints? Do we also have additional patrols? A mixture of all of the above?
It is all of the above. You can expect to see checkpoints, and you can expect to see extra officers on the street. In addition to the standard shifts that we would all have, there will be extra officers out on New Year's Eve.
And it's not necessarily concentrated, right around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock bar time. You actually see it earlier into the evening, as I understand it.
Yeah. We've done checkpoints at various times of the night and at various locations in the county, and you can count on seeing that. We tend to tag team a lot with the State Patrol.
Sure.
But we've worked with Scottsbluff PD and Gearing PD as well. And Scottsbluff County is called a priority county. There's 23 priority counties out of the 93, and so highway safety targets our county. It's because of the crash data and the DUI data and the seatbelt
usage data.
Yeah, it's all of those things that cause you to be a priority county. So they may give grants across the state, but they give more grants to priority counties.
And then, what recommendations would you have for people that are going to be out and enjoying the holiday? What recommendation would you have for them to return home safe?
Have a designated driver. Go out and enjoy yourself. We just want people to be safe, but we don't want people to drive while they're impaired. And that's the whole thing. If you've got a designated driver, then you're good.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more with Mark about some of the things that are going to be coming up in the new year. There is one law specifically, if you have children, you're going to want to be aware of. We'll be right back in just a moment. And we're back on News Extra, and our guest this morning is Scottsbluff County Sheriff Mark Overman. We've been talking a little bit about New Year's Eve enforcement. And, of course, starting up on January 1st, we do have at least one new traffic-related law that's taking effect, which is a change in the child safety restraint requirements. It used to be once a child hit 6 years old, they were not released from using a restraint. Obviously, they should use a restraint. But as far as the use of a child safety seat or a booster seat, that's changing.
It is. It's going from 6 years old to 8 years old.
Yeah, and that's going to be a little bit of a shock to folks probably, especially if they haven't been paying attention to, what's been in the news and passed in the legislature this past year. How do you envision that this enforcement is going to take place? I'm sure some people are going to be caught off guard by this.
Well, I expect a lot of people to be caught off guard by this, but those laws change every year. I certainly do not anticipate any heavy-handed enforcement from law enforcement, because this is a new law, and we get it. We're law enforcement officers, we're parents and grandparents too.
Sure.
And I think mostly it's going to be education. If we stop people, we will generally try to educate people, but that may not happen in every instance. Certainly, you can receive a citation for that.
Yeah, and of course, if you do get stopped for that, you want to be courteous to the law enforcement officer that's doing that, because it's for the kids' own safety. It's for their own good.
Yeah, absolutely. Courtesy goes a long way, both directions, and we try to try to make sure our officers always start off that way unless there's a reason not to. And if you treat officers with courtesy and respect, you will probably get that in return.
Yeah, and on the other hand, if you do happen to have a child who is obviously young enough to require the child seat or the booster, you need to have them in that.
You do.
Yeah.
You know, the things that I've seen, that I've personally written citations for. You see a 2 or 3-year-old standing up in the front seat, or somebody hang it, just got them sitting in front of them. I've been to fatality accidents where young kids have been killed in that exact scenario. So that would probably get you a citation.
Yeah, so you definitely want to avoid those type of tragic situations. Don't put yourself or your children in them, and make sure that up until the age of 8, that's the way it works this year. Starting this year, they need to either be in an approved child safety seat, of course, if they're large enough, in a booster seat that makes that seat belt fit them correctly.
That's right. That's the law. So we don't write them, but we do have to enforce them.
And of course, as we were talking about earlier, New Year's Eve enforcement coming up. Folks, you just need to be wise and have a designated driver, basically.
Exactly. That's the best way to do it. Go out and have fun and have a designated driver, and everybody's safe.
All right. Well, Sheriff Mark Overman, thank you very much for joining us today on News Extra.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
We appreciate it. Have a good day.
Okay.